Hey, thanks for coming by here at Brian for Liberty once again. Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. You'll be able to catch this one on the Spotify at Brian for Liberty as well. And if this is your first time here, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Trying to build up a little bit of a following here, and I certainly appreciate your help. I just want to jump right into it as I normally do and talk about what I'm seeing out there today and what I've been watching really for the last couple of weeks. I've really been watching a lot of MSNBC, which I know you should tell me not to do that. But I watch MSNBC. I've been watching it pretty steady for the last couple of weeks now. And their evening report, the Brian Williams report, is really starting to disturb me because it's the repetitive nature of it and what exactly it's doing is really, to me, from their online content, is really just terrible. So here, take a quick look at this clip.
Good evening on this day, 1189 of the Trump administration, 195 days remaining until our presidential election.
And like I said, the open is the same essentially every day. And it starts with a countdown of the Trump presidency every time. Essentially, MSNBC in this open, in this 8-minute bit that they do online, and time varies a little bit, but this bit that they do online is essentially running an attack ad against Donald Trump every single day. That's essentially what they're doing. This isn't just criticizing policy. It's mocking, it's condescending. I watch the whole thing, and I watch it on a daily basis, like I said, and it's just a condescending attempt to disparage the president, and it's essentially an attack ad. Now, I personally think that Donald Trump should behave better. I think he's the president of the United States. I think he should rise above this stuff and treat the press unbiased, not sink to their level. I think Barack Obama did a very nice job of that when it came to dealing with Fox News and their incredible bias. Donald Trump doesn't handle that as well. I think it hits his ego a little bit harder, maybe than a Barack Obama. But I definitely think that there's no question that there's a reason for his hostility towards the media. And I definitely think that it's pretty, to me, it's just not very, you look at Brian Williams and I think journalist, and it's just not, that's not what I'm getting from what he's putting out there on in these bits that he's doing. So, I don't know. They go through a long list of things he said at press conferences they disagree with. And then the description of the video on YouTube, the YouTube description of this video reads verbatim, flanked by doctors and scientists, the president held another marathon coronavirus briefing, repeatedly saying things that are not true, while claiming Americans are excited to reopen the nation as the pandemic continues to kill thousands of people every day. As the pandemic continues to kill thousands of people every day. That's how we're going to end this. Because what we want to do is, what they're trying to do is paint a picture of a president who's not taking this seriously, who doesn't understand the weight of what's happening right now. And then they set it up for this because every day they also find it critical to put the death toll on the screen, just like every other major media outlet. Here you can go. Here, take a look at me.
But we return once again reluctantly to the real world tonight, where the U.S. death toll stands at more than 46,000, with over 833,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus. And
this is designed to make you afraid. They're not breaking this down into subcategories based on age and underlying conditions. They're not putting the number in perspective. And this is something that Americans, I think, we're not focusing on this, or we're not thinking about this when we're hearing these numbers come across, and 46,000 deaths, and it's unprecedented that this many people are dying from a sickness in such a short period of time. As sad as it is, I'm having trouble getting words out today. As sad as it is, about 230,000 Americans die every month in this country, completely outside of the COVID-19 infection. This is the CDC number on mortality, and it's based from the 2018 numbers, of the most recent I could find. So in 2018, 2.8 million plus Americans died. It's about 230,000 Americans every single month, okay? And over 50,000 of those are heart disease. And the CDC estimates that 80% of that is preventable. So virtually every single year, we lose 50,000 Americans to heart disease per month. That's a monthly number, 650 some thousand per year. So it's over 50,000 of heart disease, and 80%. So right around over 40,000 American lives every single month. You think about 46,000 COVID deaths are being thrown at you on your television screen every single day by every major media outlet. That's about the number we lose every single month, every single year to heart disease. Why are they not throwing that number in our face? Why are they not showing scary pictures of fat people eating cheeseburgers and telling and warning every single day about the incredible dangers of heart disease, and that obesity and these unhealthy living habits are killing over 40,000 Americans every single year? Because that's not going to, Americans are going to tune into that. We don't want to give up our junk food. We don't want to give up our hamburgers. So that's not going to get, but fear of a new thing, even though it's from a perspective of how deadly this is, how many people it's killing, is the same. And it's low. It's lower, really, because once there's herd immunity to COVID-19, it's not going to continue to kill like this. Okay, heart disease is. Why are we not getting that number and thrown in our face every day? Why don't you turn on the news every day and hear today 3,000 Americans died from heart disease that could have been prevented? Because that's not going to put the fear into you that this is putting into you, and therefore they're not going to get the ratings that they're going to get. They're not going to have the captive audience that they have. This is, and that's just heart disease. That's not cancer, a lot of which is also preventable from, lung cancer from smoking, proper skin, all these different things. So there's tens of thousands of preventable deaths that take place in the United States every single month, every single year, year after year. That's not shoved in our face. This is being shoved in our face. So it really bothers me, and it really bothers me that it's so important to them to constantly be jamming that number down our face, that I turn this on and every day this is how many people have died. This is how many people have died today. This is how many people we expect to die tomorrow. Keep us updated on the science. Keep us informed. Give us objective. Give us some opinions. Bring some science on. Make sure that we're getting the information that we need. Make sure we're talking about what we can do to prevent the spread as we start opening back up. Don't try and intentionally terrify me just because that's going to help your ratings. And that's really out. I'm not getting anything of use out of it. I'm getting fear mongering. That's what I'm getting. So here is another thing that we need to take a look at. So here's another clip I want you to, this is important, and I want you to take a quick look at this. And this is important for every single American to realize, because this is a virus with no vaccine and no herd immunity. It is a coronavirus. You've heard me refer to it as COVID-19. I'm going to try and stop saying the coronavirus, because it's not the coronavirus. It's a coronavirus. It's one of many coronaviruses, one of many strands of coronavirus, from the common cold to the flu. Okay, so this is a coronavirus. This is something that experts in the field can predict how it's going to behave. They know it's not going away. And that's important. You can't hide in your house in perpetuity until there's a vaccine. We have to. This whole shutdown, lockdown debate that started to take place online is kind of missing a major point of what the purpose of this all was. This wasn't to stop the spread of COVID-19. That was never the intention. The intention was to slow the spread of COVID-19. You're going to get it. 60 to 70% of us are probably going to end up getting this sickness. Treatment, fortunately, is getting better. We're learning more and more. We're learning that maybe ventilators aren't the right treatment, that maybe that's not going to be the crisis that we thought it was going to be in terms of being limited on ventilators. As it continues to progress, our doctors and scientists are going to learn more and more about it. Treatment's going to improve. But with absent a vaccine, which you're 12 to 18 months before a safe, effective, well-tested vaccine, then that's on the short end. And this is just based on what I'm reading. Again, I'm not an expert on this. Go do your own research. But you're looking at 12 to 18 months before there's a vaccine. We are either going to wait for that, or you're going to see an exposure rate in this country of somewhere in the 60 to 70% range. That's just how it's going to shake out. You're going to get it. It's going to come back in the fall. This isn't going away. You can't hide from a virus and expect it to disappear. We need to come to terms with the fact that the shutdowns, the lockdowns, the stay-at-home orders, all that stuff was not to end COVID-19. It was just to slow it down so that as everybody got it, the hospital capacity wasn't exceeded, and we were able to properly treat people to do our best to keep that to keep that mortality rate on the lower end. But at the bottom line is, when I talk about this, I hear people all the time saying, "Well, you're going to expose me to it, and you're putting my life at risk." Unless you're going to stay locked in your house forever, you're risking getting this every time you leave your house, and forever until there's a vaccine. You're risking getting this when you leave your house. We're starting to see, as we get into, as more and more countries get better at testing, and the data from the countries that have been at the forefront of testing, that this is probably not anymore. From those countries, you're seeing mortality rates where it's more in line with the flu, higher, but more in line with it, less than 1% mortality rate. And that's confirmed cases, of which we know there are more cases out there. We know people have had this, been asymptomatic, have never been tested, and got over it. So we know that there's even more out there. So the mortality rate is probably a lot lower than we initially thought. This is the information that's starting to come to light. This is the information that I'm not necessarily seeing on mainstream media, but I'm trying to find in scientific journals. I'm also not buying into I'm not trying not to read a bunch of Facebook experts either, but this is kind of what you're seeing out there, is that we're learning that the mortality rate on this is actually significantly lower. And I want to emphasize again, that doesn't mean that this is less dangerous than the flu, because the flu isn't going to inflict 70% of Americans. Okay, so you have to keep that in mind when people say, well, it's no more deadly than the flu. Well, it can be significantly more deadly than the flu if 60% of the United States comes down with this within a 3-month period. Okay, we do have to take steps to continue to keep that curve flat so we don't overwhelm the system. That's a real thing. The hospitalization rate, even if it's in line with the flu, if 70% of the American population got the flu within just a few short months, the healthcare system would be overwhelmed and the mortality rate would increase. This is, I think, the thing that people are missing when they talk about it not being any more dangerous than the flu. Even if it is exactly as dangerous as the flu, even if the mortality rates are exactly the same and the hospitalization rates are exactly the same, you still have to take steps to mitigate the spread, because with no herd immunity like we have with the flu and no vaccines like we have with the flu, it's going to spread through the community significantly faster, and it will pose a threat to the healthcare system and the infrastructure of the healthcare system. If you look at what Sweden's doing, they have not done the shutdown. They are social distancing, but they've left most of their businesses open. They have suffered more in a shorter period of time. Their per capita losses have been higher than a lot of, but they are also flattening. And their lead epidemiologists are saying that they're going to be reaching herd immunity in their major cities within a matter of a month or two. Sweden will have that. We're going to be going back into shutdown in the fall. And this is something that another thing Americans need to prepare for. We're going to open up. This is going to start spreading again. And if we don't figure out the fact that this has to run its course through our society, through our communities, that this has to spread for us to get herd immunity, we're going to be closing it back down come the fall when this thing breaks out, and you have the flu on top of it. When you have flu season on top of resurgence of COVID-19. You're going to see that we're going to be shutting back down. You're going to see new stay-at-home orders coming. And so when you look at what Sweden's doing, they're going to be beyond this. They're going to be done. They're going to be rolling into the fall with 60% of their population haven't been exposed to this. They're going to take the losses, and it's going to be a tragedy, and it's going to be very difficult for people to deal with. But they're going to move on as a nation, and they're going to put this behind them. And the longer we deny the fact that we're going to have to face that as well, the longer we're going to drag this thing out, and the worse it's going to be. So I wanted to touch on the MSNBC thing. It's really been getting kind of under my skin here a little bit. I don't think the reporting is balanced. I think it's designed to drive fear. I don't think there's enough kind of perspective on and enough communication about what we're actually dealing with here when you're looking at how mainstream media is reporting this. And I know I picked on MSNBC, but Fox News kind of reports this stuff the same way. They're probably leaning more like the president in terms of opening back up, but at the same time, we have to start dealing with the reality, and I don't think they are either, that you're going to see a very large portion of our population come down with this illness, and we are going to suffer a tragic and high amount of loss of life. That's the reality of this, unless we're willing to sit around and wait for a vaccine. So, and we also have to put this thing into perspective with some of the other things that go on in this isn't the only thing that kills Americans. This isn't the only thing that's killing us out there. Like I said, we have, as sad as it is, we lose 230 plus thousand people every month to a multitude of things, and a lot of them are preventable. So we have to face this thing head on, and we have to deal with it. So outside of that, here's the other thing: is this chirping is going to start getting louder and louder, and it's going to be the Medicare for all argument. Biden is not currently a proponent for Medicare for all, but I think the media pressure and the continuing issues with COVID-19 are going to push him further to the left on this issue, and I think that there's definitely going to be a shift where he starts leaning more towards Medicare. It wouldn't surprise me if he starts moving in that direction as we get closer and closer to the election. But here's a quick clip from Secular Talk that kind of caught my eye today, and this is one of the things that always jumps out at me when we talk about healthcare.
And pushing for Medicare for all, because he saw it firsthand, what it's like when you have the profit motive in these health insurance companies, when you have this unnecessary parasite mafia middleman getting in between people and their doctors.
So first, we obviously have to address something that the left hates, and that is profits. Boy, they'd love to use that word. It's as if they have programmed people on the left, Democrats, their followers, to react, oh, the word profit is a dirty word. They'll use that word and then they'll apply it to something, and that's it. That's why we have to change this thing. There is, in fact, a profit motive in healthcare. There just is. It's a business, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, it's not deniable. There's a profit motive in it. There just is. One of the things he talks about here is that, we got these people standing between, their provider and, this third party mafia, whatever, standing in between the customer and the provider and whatnot. And what Medicare for all proponents kind of always fail to mention is the fact that, first of all, the high cost of health insurance and the lack of competition is due to a massive government intervention dating back to the Great Depression. Go watch my Medicare for all, not an option video on my channel here, one of my earlier videos where I go through kind of that whole process, what we did, how we destroyed the healthcare system, and the way back. I also kind of talk about why the European system isn't going to work here. But Medicare is just insurance. It's also an insurer. It's not a different system. They behave in very much the same way, and Medicare is one of the most inefficient and administratively burdensome insurers out there for the actual providers. So Medicare for all isn't, okay, now we won't have health insurance to worry about. It's all the administrative burdens of health insurance. The insurer standing between you and your provider is still going to exist. It's just going to be a government bureaucracy. And the next clip here is critical to understanding why Medicare for all is not only is it never going to happen, but why it is a terrible idea to allow government to take over healthcare. Take a look at this.
The business model is unscrupulous and evil, and we need to change it. So let's take this a step further here. The anti-corruption news site Sludge says the following: Democrats' health insurer bailout follows bundled checks from the industry's lobbyists. Health insurance lobbyists have collected nearly $250,000 for the DCCC so far this cycle. The Democrats' proposal mirrors a recommendation put forward recently by the health insurance industry.
So this is it, folks. These are your people. If you are a fan of Medicare for all, these are your guys. And Democrats are getting ready to hand a massive chunk of taxpayer money to multi-billion-dollar health insurance companies. And this is it. This Secular Talk this is a very left-leaning program. This isn't, I didn't pull this from Hannity. This is a very left-leaning program. I think he does a nice job here kind of exposing his own people, the politicians on the left. This is it. They're taking the money. $250,000 is what he mentions. If you focus in on that document, there's $750,000. They're raising money. They are in the pocket of big health insurance, just like the Republicans are. This is why Medicare for all is it's never going to happen, folks. And it won't work here anyway. And again, I go back to my other video. I talk about why the European system wouldn't work in the United States, but it's never going to happen here. You're never going to get it passed. And so my personal belief is there's some really good solutions to our health insurance problems that we're having in this country. Again, I'm pimping that video a lot. There is a video in here called Medicare for All, Not an Option on my page. Go back in there, and if you listen to that, I go through it all. I'm not going to rehash it all here, but we have to look at the fact that government intervention is what caused a lot of the issues that we have in our health insurance right now. And that by going back to the government to solve this problem, these people are still taking the money. So don't think that a Medicare for All, that a government-ran program, isn't going to be just as susceptible to corruption as the current system is. Because you could say the health insurers are greedy and they're for profit, and that's perfectly fine. But the politicians who take the money are just as bad, are they not? If the Democrats are taking this money, if we know the Republicans are taking this money, what makes you think that a government-ran program isn't going to be just as corrupt as the program we have right now, just in a different way? So who knows are they going to be taking the money from the providers instead of the insurers to drive up price, to limit procedures, to the idea that, okay, now we have this single-payer government-ran program and now it'll be fine, is ridiculous. He just laid out the case against turning it over to the government, because even the politicians who are selling you on the idea that government needs to take care of it and we have this terrible corrupt system, they're taking the money from the system they say is so corrupt. So it's a terrible situation. The health insurance industry in this country does not function like it should. It's not a free market system. You constantly hear that if you give them the opportunity, the free market wouldn't function in healthcare. That's a hot, terrible, horrible garbage of an argument, because the fact that it doesn't exist is one of the arguments you'll hear. Well, show me a free market health system that works. Again, right up until FDR intervened in the healthcare market, the U.S. healthcare system worked really well. And it was a free market system. The fact that a free market system doesn't exist is not an argument that it doesn't work. Prior to the Revolutionary War in 1776, the government hadn't been founded on the ideals of individual liberty. I guess we shouldn't let people be free because it didn't exist. It's a terrible argument. That corruption is the reason that the free market systems don't exist, because they do not benefit health insurers, because health insurers in a free market would actually have to compete with each other. So it's a terrible argument to say, well, the free market can't solve this problem. We've never given the free market an opportunity. Everywhere the free market does function, it functions very well. There's no reason to think it wouldn't function very well here as well. So that's just a bad argument. But I wanted to just touch on those two things, because we got to stay vigilant, because as this thing winds down, as we start moving towards the election, COVID-19 is absolutely going to be an excuse that you're going to hear from the left to push for this Medicare for All. And this clip from a very left-leaning source, very accurate information as well, shows you that corruption doesn't just disappear. The more power government has, the more attractive it is going to be to corruption. Money's attracted to power. The more power government has, the more money that they're going to take in. The more money they take in, the less they're working for you. So I wanted to show those clips. I really, really do appreciate you guys stopping by. I said a couple of days ago that I was going to get a podcast up regarding financial health and preparing for the next emergency and the next crisis, and why you're being trained incorrectly. You're really being pushed in the opposite direction that you need to go. And I wanted to kind of go over all of that on a podcast, which I will be getting up. I will record that tomorrow. I'll have that podcast up tomorrow, and that's Brian for Liberty, at Brian for Liberty on Spotify is where you can find that. I'll have it up tomorrow evening. Hope you guys will check that out. I'll remind you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe. Then I can remind you tomorrow on my video to take a look at that, to take a listen to the podcast as well. So there'll be some good stuff in there. Anyway, thanks again for stopping by. We will see you guys, as always, next time.